Well, hello and welcome to this spooky episode again. I'm here with my broachy boys. Say boo.
Hold on. Oh.
Ooh. So we're talking about episode 2 of Uzumaki. We're going to watch it real quick, and then we have something to discuss that is in line with the, I guess, quality change or something that people have been discussing after the first episode. If you haven't seen the first episode, go watch that, and then watch our reaction to that. I think we're all like along the same page where it really did a good job of portraying those thematic moments from the manga on a visual. In a visual form.
Nothing but good things to say about that first one. Yeah, for sure.
So we're gonna quick talk about what that article is about, and then we'll jump into the episode, and then we'll, I guess, form our own opinions after that. So, Bracho, if you want to maybe discuss it a little bit.
Discuss the issue?
Yeah, what's going on?
Well, so a lot of people noticed upon release the quality dip in the new episode. Let me pull up people were noticing odd like run cycles that didn't work out, bad syncing of like mouth movements, or very stilted ones, just some kind of corner cutting measures that you tend to find in like standard like anime these days. Well, just in general, because it's a cost saving thing. Yeah. But it was something like this, you didn't expect it because of the fact that they were trying to do, make it as close as possible and do the hard work on it. But anyway, people were pointing this out, sharing clips and stuff, which I watched some of them, and some of them are pretty like jarring comparatively to the stuff we already saw. Jason DeMarco, who's the co-creator of the Toonami Action Block on Cartoon Network, he's the executive producer of Uzumaki. He brought up some stuff out of everything. He said, it's fine, we knew this would happen. I can't talk about what went down, but we were screwed over, and the options were A, not finish and air nothing and call it a loss, B, just finish and air episode 1 and leave it incomplete, or C, run all 4, warts and all. Out of respect for the hard work, we chose C. After waiting so long, it makes sense people would be mad. Unfortunately, I can't tell them who to blame it on, but someone is definitely at fault here, and we just all had to do our best when things imploded. Maybe others would have made different choices. We did the best we could with what we had. But again, a lot of people worked very hard on the show, and I think the actions of just one or two people should be the reason it never saw the light of day. Said, maybe that's the wrong choice. I truly don't know, but those people have a right to be annoyed and disappointed. I'm glad you are digging it. And like, this is all, it took 5 years to make this thing. Was delayed multiple times. He himself called it a cursed production just because of how many delays they hit. The third big delay was COVID, and trying to, do stuff from home. Just all sorts of things that hit this thing. One of the things to note, however, is it was a completely different group of people that did episode 2 that made it. Episode 1 was directed by Hiroshi Nagahama and animated by Studio Fugaku. Episode 2 was directed by Yuji Moriyama and animated by Studio Akatsuki. So completely different group that animated episode 2 and directed episode 2.
Yeah, without knowing like a ton of the ins and outs, maybe just the change in production people like is having to do with budgetary reasons, or what he's talking about with getting screwed over,
Yep. Or maybe one studio or person at a studio not fulfilling their promises, maybe. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
like maybe it was the studio, like maybe they were led to believe one thing from one of the animation studios, but it wasn't, correct or something. I don't know, but that at least prove, could be part of the reason, since it was not the same studio that delivered episode 1, which was obviously painstakingly done.
Mm-hmm.
Someone to comment is like, you could tell they just had a 3D model for some of this in episode 2 that someone just kind of traced over, and like so it's I wonder if it's not just like if it's the studios not being able to live up to their end of the bargain too, whoever did
Mm-hmm.
episode 2, because I could totally see them, for the amount of work that would go into making Uzumaki what we expected it to be, what episode 1 was. There's a lot of work, and so I'm sure they farmed. I don't know if each episode is done by a different studio or not, but I could see them farming it out to few studios to get the work done. Um, but yeah, so something happened. And it sounds like this is a problem that's probably going to persist over the next 2 episodes, unfortunately.
Just to like directly comment on his statement there, I do think that like there are certain things that could be left out of that statement, like shit happened. I can't like just going by like, hey, here's A, B, or C what we were able to do, and because of the hard work of people that went into it, we released it. And I do think that that is probably the best decision, because after the expectation, after the wait, like whether pristine or not, having the whole thing out is really like kind of the best scenario we could have asked for in this case of
Yeah.
like not having the
Either
manga like directly adapting his own work or
yeah.
yeah.
You'd either get the complete letdown of it not coming out at all, which they'd never hear the end of, and then it would hurt them, hurt their reputation and thus probably financially as well.
Mm-hmm.
Or that other option of just releasing episode 1, which would just be a fucking massive, like, case of fucking blue balls for people.
But
And
if
be
they
like,
maybe if
this
they
is so
had like
great, but I don't get the rest.
but maybe if they had gotten ahead of themselves during like the COVID and been like, hey, like obviously shit's hard on everybody. We had talked about wanting to adapt this whole story and do multiple episodes. We are scaling back what we are doing, and we are focusing on just one release, one episode, and we're trying to make that as best as possible. Like
Right.
you can see the different ways that this could have gone down. And again, like without having seen the episode, I don't know how much I can say it really is a big deal in my opinion. But
Right.
I can see why people would be upset, but I also think that it's a very like from what we understand, it's a very reasonable set of circumstances.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll reserve our opinions on the quality after we watch it. So let's just jump into it, guys.
All right.
Let's go down that drain.
Woo! Spiral further.
Woo! I like to think that's
Flush me,
Eric's,
Daddy.
Eric.
All right. Well, we just finished episode 2 of Uzumaki, and
Yeah.
So, what did you guys think? We'll get into the animations and maybe the shortcuts they took, but what did you guys think of the overall story and the narrative?
I liked it. It was more jumpy than the previous one. You know what I mean? Like it jumped to different kind of scenes pretty quick and back and forth. But I enjoy it showing the town kind of further falling to this spiral situation. You know what I'm saying? How it's starting to loom even greater over the town.
Yeah, it seems like the aftermath of the first episode is carrying over a little bit into this one. Like they're talking about,
for sure.
They have to start burying bodies instead of cremating them because
yeah,
it's making spiral
so I bet
clouds.
that kind of the spiral cloud probably spread that shit, right? So now it's like getting even further around town, like where before you had a select few people, now it's starting to affect just like everybody from like the teenagers to there's a bunch of older people who fucking they're trying to get somewhere but they can't because they just keep walking in circles and spirals, and like it's starting to affect everybody.
Yeah.
I do think that is something like, I don't know, thematically or just like story structure wise that Junji Ito makes use of a lot, where it's like the beginning of the story, there's 2 or 3, or there's like just a few people that are activating or honed into the central like idea of the story, and then it just keeps spreading like exponentially, and it starts with like kind of like mental obsession or people just having these recurring thoughts about the thing, and then that leads to like these weird physical manifestations, and they kind of just shrug it off like, oh yeah, this just started happening, whatever. And then eventually they reach some kind of turning point and something very like disturbing happens to them. And I think that is part of what makes his style of horror so effective, is that like the weirdness and the way that these stories are told, they do stick with you and you think about them like over and over, and the way that these characters are thinking about these things over and over, you're like, oh shit. Like it's like a meta style of horror that he's kind of like been able to tap into in a certain way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really trying to just not like talk too much about any quality of animation and just talk about the story or other things here.
Right. And yeah, we can talk a little bit about the animation from, the story in the first episode where Shuichi's dad, was getting really enamored with spirals, and he just was in love with them, and he couldn't like relax until he like had a spiral, or it's like his drug or something. So like he would stir his ramen, right, and really fast, and he would just like watch it before he ate it, or he would like turn the bath water around. And seeing him do that in animation was interesting because the motion of him moving the water or like frantically mixing up his ramen with his chopsticks, like that was that invoked that kind of manic like state that he was in because of the spirals.
That's funny that you're talking about those specific things, because I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
I'm actually reading right now about how Junji Ito, when he was basically coming up with the inspiration for this story, he was doing those things. A Japanese mosquito coil?
Nope.
You ever seen one of those?
Mosquito coil.
It's like a green. I don't know what it's made of exactly, but it's similar to. It's got to be similar to like a citronella candle, where it's this coiled material that is like forms a big spiral, and at the very end, at like the longer end of the spiral, it just like reaches upward, and then you light the end of it like incense, and it burns and keeps mosquitoes away.
Yes.
Right. But he was trying to like seek more inspiration from this spiral idea by doing things like staring at spirals, creating spiral patterns by draining water from bathtubs, eating foods with spiral patterns, raising snails. So I think that's funny that you're mentioning that when I'm like.
But in this one, we don't have a person like Shuichi's dad. Like he was just like in a league of his own, right? Because he like embodied, like he just wanted to become a spiral. Everybody else is like
he was obsessed with it. Yeah.
Everybody else seems like they're just reacting to a presence of a spiral, whereas like Shuichi's dad's like, yeah, dude, let's bring on the spirals. Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm all in. I vote for spiral.
Well, he was like the catalyst, where he was like the fucking match, and then this everything now is like the burning tinders, where the corruption has started to spread and there's no going back. Yeah. This kid who was like being habitually late to class or whatever over time, and then the other kid who also was like lagging behind, and you said like, wow, that's weird, why is he going so slow?
Yeah, because he was eventually turning into a snail.
Yeah,
you got people changing snails. This one, you got the couple of God, I forget their names, but the couple,
yep,
they were chilling, and then they saw the snakes like intertwine, as they're mating and shit and disappear, and then they end up kind of doing the same thing, spiraling around each other. Cool, some cool manifestations of the spiral stuff in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of this like rings true for what I've seen for a lot of other Junji Ito stuff is like maybe not the main character, but like a female character's hair kind of like having a life of its own or doing things that you don't expect. And the casual way that people treat this horror,
Right.
like yeah, they're reacting in ways that they're disgusted or scared or something like that, but then they don't do what, I don't know, what you might think would be sensible to like run or start panicking past just a scream.
It kind of increases the like from a protagonist perspective. It's a lot of like, aren't you guys seeing this? Aren't you guys freaking, like it's instilling that like how are you guys not freaking out about this? How are you not, you know what I mean? Like it makes almost your protagonist feel more isolated when like they're clearly freaked out by all this, but everybody else is just fucking going with it, right?
Yeah, that is part of the manga. Is just like Kyrie was the catalyst, or was like the audience. She's reacting to everything how you should react to it, but she's seeing everybody else in her town just like deal with it or just go along with it. Like the Jack in the Box character guy gets like ran over because he's like so in love with Kyrie's.
He gets wrapped around a tire.
He becomes a spiral.
Becomes wrapped around a. Oh, that was gruesome. And then he has a little Jack in the Box moment again.
Did you guys know that there was a live?
Yeah, it could have been more gruesome, but
a live action adaptation of Uzumaki?
I did not.
Yes.
Yeah. Holy shit! It came out on my birthday, February 11th, 2000.
Interesting.
90 minutes.
Bet you that's not great.
It could be cool. Has received very mixed reviews, but I'd be curious to check it out just because like that way back, that's 20 plus years ago. So what they were able to do then and maybe how that influenced what they wanted to do now.
Right. Well, and also like they're out there. I think they're on Netflix right now, at least one of them. But there's a Junji Ito collection of a previous like go at adapting some of his stuff, some of his short stories.
Yeah, I thought there was.
Yeah, I think they're on Netflix right now. At least one of them is the Junji Ito collection. It's also done in the more kind of the anime style we're used to, less detailed, more economically, which is why it's gotten mixed to poor reviews as well, because it's just not as it's not what you want out of a Junji Ito adaptation. It's not as visceral. It's not as like.
Do you know what that experience like directly speaks to me of, Eric? That I think you're probably also familiar with. That we've never talked about directly is the idea of motion comics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very much a manga or anime. Standard anime is like more like decently more animated motion comics.
but back in the day, I remember coming across titles of movies. They would be like listed as movies, and it would be a Marvel, DC, what have you, and it would be like, oh shit, I want to watch this. And then I click on it, and it's just a motion comic.
Motion comic, yeah. I know a big one they did on MTV2. They did an Invincible motion comic.
Watchmen.
There is Watchmen. They did. There's a Black Panther one they did.
And I mean,
even
they have their own merits.
Going as far back, like some of the original like Marvel animated stuff.
Yeah.
From back in the day, there's like a Marvel Animation Hour or something, whatever, which was basically just taking the comics and doing very limited animation with it.
Yeah, back in the early 60s.
It was like mid to late 60s, early 70s, something like that.
Yeah. But entering into something with a certain expectation and then being met with something else speaks to this, speaks to that experience. But and we said this during our watch through of this episode too, like if in a different world, episode 1 wouldn't have been like a 150%, this would have been a totally like passable benchmark.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. As like it is like similar quality to maybe a little better than your standard anime in quality, animation quality. If we didn't have like that first episode, and especially obviously when we saw previews of that first episode, so we saw how like hard in the paint they went on that initial one, and there was a promise or a thing that was like the goal was to get as close to Junji Ito stuff as possible with this. So when we see some of the stuff, can we talk about some of the animation stuff now?
Do it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. It's
Okay.
just I
So
didn't want
a
to get
lot of
like
the stuff,
negative too early.
yeah, a lot of the stuff that we see again, it's stuff that we are now kind of used to seeing in run of the mill anime, which is like a lot of still shots, a lot of shots of it's a still shot, and the only thing animated is a flapping mouth. Poorly rendered background characters that aren't moving at all. Stilted walk cycles.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, some bad
That's a
walk
big one.
cycles. Some just looped like bits of animation where
Mhm.
where someone is doing a movement and they just loop it a couple times. Um, One of the more jarring ones was when she's going up the lighthouse
Yeah.
and she's just kind of undulating back and forth and like the background's not moving at all, but there's like footstep movement, so you're supposed to think she's still walking up the lighthouse, like stuff
Right
like
there,
that.
right here.
Yeah. And yeah,
Um,
that run cycle, yeah, like stuff like that. There's like shots. I know there was like a crowd scene at one point where like one that stuck out to me was like I already saw it, like, which is a normal thing again in most anime, is just people kind of standing still while there's like one person animated in the middle. But there's like a shot and the boy's like got his finger pointed and is like kind of mouth open or something, but he's not moving at all. He's just still. Um, yeah, it's in this part, I think. The Vegeta Goku battle. There's the hair too, like it's only moving in like scenes where it's supposed to move, otherwise it just stays still. Or there was one time where they showed it and they just put like an effect over it to make it wavy so it looked like it was kind of moving. Um
the biggest
like
time that like the discrepancy between at least decently animated and just like subpar was the
yeah,
scene of Kyrie at the hair salon when her
yes.
hair like right after her hair has grabbed the stylist when
Yeah,
like Kyrie's in the foreground and the stylist is in the background on the floor and the
yeah.
stylist in the background you can notice in some of these moments like the the inking or the line work is like thinner and a lot scratchier and less defined, and it just is distracting if you take your
Um
eyes away from the thing that is like well animated.
yeah. Tyler, an easier one to find too is if you go to when they are when the couple is intertwining themselves
Mhm.
on the beach there. Um, there is there. I think that right
That
there
was
is
the
where that
point.
little boy is.
Yeah,
They're right there.
pointing.
Yeah, there's a scene going on. This boy just stands like that the whole time. But when they're wrapping around each other, it's back a little further. I think. Yeah, it's back here. Um, there's a point where there's two dudes that are talking, and like you don't like nobody's moving. There's two dudes kind of looking at each other and Kyrie in the background, and nobody's moving at all. Kyrie blinks a couple times, and that's it. You don't see the guys that are talking at all. And like, and then it goes to another shot that's Kyrie and her brother, and yeah, it's right here. There's two dudes talking right there. That back, yeah, like a little further back, just a little bit, skosh, right, yeah, right there. There's two dudes talking here. And I don't know if it's supposed to be the two dudes in the foreground here, but they're not moving whatsoever. And there's two dudes talking, and Kyrie and her brother are just standing there. And she like blinks once or twice, but nobody's moving. It's just a still picture while two dudes are talking. And like that's some of the more kind of jilting things where they're or like things that stuck out where it was just like, there's dudes talking here and there's nobody like moving. There's nobody moving. There's no indication someone's talking in the frame. It's really weird. And then the part where they disappear in the water, they go, and then where they go into the water actually here. He tries to get her apart, doesn't quite work. And they're like, fucking leave us alone. And then here, so watch, like, that's already jilty as shit. But then they just fucking, boom, they just disappear. There's no, it's like from that, like, from the water's edge to like, a few feet out, they move, and then all of a sudden it's just disappear. There's no like transition animation into that. It's like Wilson was saying, like I was saying, like if this was just like, if we didn't have that first episode and being teased with that first episode, like this would be fine. But like even like her hair, I was brought that up right away too. Like in the first episode, there was so much like wind through her hair and her hair moving, and throughout this episode, her hair just stays stagnant. There it is. She's supposed to be walking upstairs right there, and it looks like she just stops and goes fucking undulates back and forth a couple times, but she's supposed to be walking upstairs there. Same right there. Like, yeah, it's again, if I was just to expect, standard an anime, like it'd be fine, but because of what we got in that first episode, especially, and what has been teased, and the fact we've had to wait 5 years for it, and everyone had it built up in their brain based off of those teasers from the first episode. That's what makes it truly like the disappointment that people are having.
Yeah,
you know what I
it's
mean?
more
Like
egregious.
some of those shit. I don't know if you remember, like when Dragon Ball Super first came out, and people were like, "What the fuck is happening here?" Because there's just like fucking there's Beerus in the background. He's just got two black dots for an eye and no detail on his face. Like it's stuff like that for some of the background characters, and like it's weird. Again, standard to maybe a little above standard, maybe anime quality, but like it's just it's a lot of economical animation, which is still frames and then only moving what you have to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And none of this from I don't think any of this is from us to say like shame on these animators or like they should have done better.
Not at all.
We are just trying to point out what we noticed, and I do think that like I'm glad that we are able to watch this in the first place.
By and large, I still fucking enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just it's just if I mean, there would definitely be things I would have noticed if this wasn't a news story. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I definitely would have noticed some of those poorly rendered background characters, some of those just like still frame things, that weird walk cycle up the lighthouse, like that stuff I would still notice, but I obviously wouldn't have been paying as much attention to it as I would now, So I'm interested to see if it's the same animation company that's doing episodes 3 and 4, or if it went back to the people who did 1, what the case with 3 and 4 are going to be. Like that's the biggest question going forward.
Right. What was the who did the first episode then?
The first episode was, let me bring it up again here. First episode was done by directed by Hiroshi Nagahama, who was a veteran of such things as Mushishi and The Flowers of Evil, and animated by Studio Fugaku. Episode 2 was directed by Yuji Moriyama and animated by Studio Akatsuki.
Fugaku.
Yep.
Okay.
Minorly interesting thing to note is DeMarco, the guy that was talking about all this, the guy who's the working with Adult Swim, the producer, all that stuff. He is also the producer for the upcoming Lord of the Rings anime movie. or the Rohirrim.
Oh yeah, the Rohirrim one. That trailer looks really great.
It did. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what episode 3 and 4 bring us. Again, I still by and large enjoyed it as just like a piece of, anime and spooky anime and fucking Junji stuff, but that first episode, man,
It set the bar so high, so
it
it's
did.
gonna be
It did, and
really
that's
hard.
rough. And that's rough,
I would be fine if they I mean, these are what 20-minute long little episodes.
Something like that.
If they would just break up those little vignettes into I don't know, little shorts or something.
Right.
10 minutes. Either cut it in half or do an 8-minute one. I'd be totally down for that. And then you could have these little isolated, here's the dad turning into a spiral story. Here's the girl with the spiral face. Here's
Right.
Here's just the hair. Here's just the lovers. Here's just the lighthouse. Just breaking it up like that. Maybe then it's more manageable. I don't know, but it's such a it does seem like it does drop in the quality of the animation, not in the quality of the story or anything like that, the acting and whatever else, but you can't look past those animation shortcuts because when somebody's talking off screen and your eyes are focused on Kyrie, but nothing is happening with her, she's not reacting or making a face. She's just there. Cut away from her. I don't need to see what she's, whatever still image that is. Cut to these guys talking and give me reference to what they're talking about. Show the lighthouse, show whatever else. There needs to be
some action,
thought.
yeah. Some interesting little tidbits from the wiki. So Hiroshi Nagahama, the guy who said directed the first episode, he was supposed to be the director for everything.
Okay.
He was supposed to be the director for the whole series. And an interesting quote from 2021. When I remember this because he directly addressed it about how long it's taking, whatever. He said how the pandemic forced the team to restructure their plan for the anime from scratch. And then the for this episode, Nagahama's only credited for storyboards. So yeah, it seems I bet some higher ups or some person at Adult Swim or something was getting frustrated, or Warner Brothers, whoever, about the amount of time it was taking and how much money they probably had sunk into it, that they're like, let's just get this fucking thing done. And they took the standard studio thing, which is to farm it out to other people to help finish it, because they knew that it wasn't going to be finished, anytime on a timely fashion if it was going to continue at the pace it was going. So I bet it has something to do with that. I bet it's Warner Brothers.
What was that? Somebody gave a clarification, there was a few people that made this decision.
Yeah, DeMarco said that there's one or two people to blame for it, but he couldn't get into it, which denotes it's probably a higher up.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was saying.
Because it's not. And then so it was probably just purely cost shit. I'm betting.
Mm-hmm.
And that they were like, yeah, this is cool, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe some bits in this too that were already animated from Fugaku, but then some of the better looking stuff, but then it was taken over and finished or redone by Akatsuki,
Mm-hmm.
Should be, yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, it's one of those things where, and of course, the higher up's not going to care about promises or what the fans are fucking clamoring for, whatever. They just want to get the product out so they can recoup money on it. So I bet a lot of that is the case, unfortunately.
Well, this is kind of interesting because it's Warner Brothers and
Yep.
HBO Max that are
Yep.
helping with this. And aren't they the ones that decided to run the show Velma after people hate watched it?
Yep. And they are also the same people that axed entire completed movies for tax cuts. They're also it's
their decision making to me
and that was
is
this was
really wonky and like,
and it was smack. So this was going on smack dab in the middle of when all those changes happened.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like this
So
has lived through that.
Yeah, I bet it has a lot to do with that.
Which is unfortunate, but I'm glad we're getting something out of this. And it's interesting.
Yep.
I wasn't really preparing to like do a watch through of episode 2 or like continuing this, but knowing that it's only 4 episodes, we couldn't return to this and just talk about them. I did definitely want to after Wilson posted
I think
article,
it begs the case. I think it begs the case for us to finish it on here too.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's around the same.
I would want nothing else.
Season. But yeah, when Wilson posted that thing, I was like, okay, this seems like something interesting that we should discuss because we did. People have been watching our episode on episode 1, and maybe now they'll have some clarification if they haven't really read that article or what have you, and knowing a little bit more behind it.
I think that like
it's a developing story too. We might find out more as the weeks go on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And hey, we've seen like not redemption stories, but we've seen like comeback stories where it's like, oh, this thing is dead, absolutely dead, production hell for years, and then boom, all of a sudden things start moving. So maybe we do get another Junji Ito adaptation that's like just from beginning to end, top to bottom, stellar.
Yeah, that's what Tomie would be tight.
But that might happen. I do think that definitely might happen with people watching this now, and after articles are being made about the quality, maybe people will have a more like an interest in watching this. It's Junji Ito. It's got a great IP. Right. It's Uzumaki. It's very familiar. The iconic imagery. They'll see the return of this and be like, oh my gosh, maybe we should put more money behind this and get the original dudes that did the first episode back.
Right, or see the level of people's passion about it via speaking out about what we got with episode 2, and maybe see that it might be some thing to reevaluate. I mean, that would mean that the higher ups have any sort of care outside of recouping things, but like, I mean, who knows? I don't know.
They don't care because
I'm looking at it very cynically, but
they put Velma out again to have people hate watch it. Like it's a dumb.
They
decision.
They canned Batgirl completely. They canned that fucking Acme, fucking Looney Tunes movie, like all those shits.
Coyote versus Acme, whatever.
Yeah,
but I can see, like the reason that I posted that is because I feel like that discussion is just part of the zeitgeist of this Uzumaki adaptation. You can't like
it's storied, it's long running, we've had a saga.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's completely true. Like it lived through that pandemic. It's living with us in the zeitgeist and seeing the developing, procedures that it took to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, I would like to frame it as like that is part of what we encourage here as Fargonauts and as like a group of friends is that it's just entering a topic into the conversation. We can talk about things, we can have different ideas, and that is great because that's what creates more conversation, and that's what creates like new ideas that we come up with in the future.
Right.
And I am encouraged that. Look, I don't know how long we've been recording for, but
Oh, man.
we've been talking for a little bit,
Half an
and
hour.
that's what we do here. Whether it's digressing or whatever, is like I'm encouraged when we are able to talk at length on something because it shows that we care in one way or another.
Yes. Yeah. We hold a passion for it.
And
Yep.
maybe other people do too. Maybe other people want
Yeah.
to have, voice their opinions.
Obviously, based off this response, there's, people are passionate about it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's good.
If you search just Uzumaki in Google right now,
Yep.
like so many articles are going to come up about like this specific topic of
Right.
episode 1, episode 2 quality difference, and it's just like wow.
Which is funny. Before this, I bet if you type Uzumaki, you would get probably the book, but also you get a lot of Naruto shit too.
Naruto, yeah.
Trust me, I've been trying to. Yeah, I looked up Uzumaki logo for our thumbnails, and I'm just getting Naruto's like headband. I'm like, God damn,
Yeah.
that.
I wonder if this will be because, like you said, maybe there's already a previous release of some Junji Ito stuff that is like an anthology or a bunch of collected stories. But if this is a open story, like completed story, this might be the best way for the general audiences to just be exposed to his storytelling via word of mouth. Like somebody who's in the know watches it and is like aware of the drop in quality, but regardless recommends it to a friend who has no idea, recommends it, and if
the anime intrigues them, and then they fucking be like, dude, check out the manga. You know what I mean? Like something.
But if like Junji Ito becomes a bit more of a cultural, not everyday name, but like a little bit more of a mainstay with his type of horror, I think that could very like greatly benefit the whole storytelling community because you get these very distinct voices into the like art conversation, and it just elevates everybody else who pays attention.
Well, I mean, outside of your like big name anime stuff, Junji Ito is definitely the like next best selling dude. You know what I mean? Like outside of your One Pieces and your shonen shit and the shit that's got current big animes, like Junji is that dude. Which is great. That's at the shop I work at. Fucking one of the things we make sure to continuously have stocked is Junji shit, and it always sells. You know what I mean? Like it's always sells out. So he has the staying power, I think, to continue to warrant things like this. I don't know. Whether we do an episode or not on it, I think it'd be fun for us at least to watch his episode of that show Monben that I was talking about, where he where it just kind of follows a mangaka on their work day, and then like they talk about it and shit afterwards. It's at the very least, I think we should watch it just for fun, if not an episode after this is done. But the man loves the Beatles and cats, and he's a very wholesome boy, which is not the guy you expect who makes this shit.
Honestly, it kind of is from a mangaka as well as like
right.
Sometimes these people like David Lynch is that to me, where he's not the type of person you would expect him to be,
right?
Just based upon his works. And
well, you look at someone like Miyazaki, right? Who's got all this like stuff that's all this hopeful and bright and like whatever, and the man himself is very introverted and very kind of not cynical, but more kind of grounded and whatever, and kind of a more reserved, darker dude. You got Junji Ito, who makes just fucked up shit, and he's just like the brightest, like most wholesome little boy you could ever meet.
Because he gets it all out onto the page, and then he lives his life like separate from what he
It's the things in their imagination that they need to get out, right?
But that's why his work is so well realized, is because he gives so much of himself to this idea, and it is so separate from the rest of his life.
I like to think that he just thinks it's funny. He doesn't think it's scary at all. He just like draws funny characters.
This is this weird thing.
This is funny. She has like an eyeball and a spiral in her head.
Yeah,
that's weird.
he yeah, he is. I bet it might even be in that Mom Ben episode. But like I bet you he does see something. It's just like this would be a kind of funny little thing. I don't know if I brought this up already, but I highly recommend people to check out his adaptation of Frankenstein. Holy fuck, super good.
Yeah,
super good.
I remember getting that on the free comic book day.
Yeah,
I went and got some free comics, and then I was looking through Junji Ito, and I do have a leather bound like those classic novel things that you get at like Barnes and Noble. I have a
Barnes and Noble.
Frankenstein.
Yeah,
I have a Mary Shelley Frankenstein one, and then
yep.
because I'm a big Frank fan. I mean, I like.
Love me some Frank, dude. Watch that before Halloween season's over.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best mood setter for Halloween. It's not your typical horror movie, but it's very moody and eerie.
Yep.
And it's just it sets that tone.
The cinematography in that movie, like some of the wide shots of like Frankenstein's lab and like the windmill at the end, and
iconic windmill.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like, but lighting, even, like, you can tell that it's miniature, and they're flashing thunder and lightning and all that. Oh, yeah.
And fire, the pitchforks, everything being lit.
When I was a kid, I have such a distinct memory of, like, we went trick-or-treating, and we rented probably, like, 10 movies from Cashwise, and they consisted of, like, that classic black and white Frankenstein, Dracula, like, all these really old black and white movies. And as kids, we kind of didn't give a shit what the movie was. We just ate our candy and were watching them, but like they were so indelible that we were all just, and it was great.
That's my off topic, on topic. That's my goal of this season is to watch all those Universal horror movies. Cause like I realized I've seen Frankenstein a few times, but outside of that, I've like maybe only seen bits and bobs of the other ones.
Okay. Watch I think it's the Italian or Spanish Dracula. That's like the better version of it. And then the Mummy. The Mummy is great.
Let's watch them together.
All the like main ass dudes are, because I was like under the assumption, I was like, oh shit. The reason why I couldn't watch them in the past was because they were all on Peacock. But this year I went to Peacock and I was like, Frankenstein was on there, but it was all sequels outside of that.
Like the Hammer sequels, or
and I was like, just the other sequels. The other like Son of Dracula. Bride was on there, which was cool. But yeah, like Son of Dracula and like all that shit, which are still cool. But Amazon Prime has all of those on it right now. I watched Dracula the other night. I was planning on watching Wolfman, but I fell asleep. And I woke up, and then it just auto played into The Mummy, and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And then I fell asleep again. and then it auto played into Invisible Man, and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And I fell asleep again.
Man is hilarious. Christ. I gotta say, Invisible Man is the funniest one out of all of them.
I saw the last 15 minutes of Invisible Man, but I have to go back and rewatch those. But that's my thing is to watch those
guys.
Okay, yeah, they're available.
Like all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, tying it back into Junji Ito, when I got the Frankenstein from Free Comic Books, I could not put that book down. It was like
so good.
First page, I was like, "Oh, I'm hooked," and then
it's a great adaptation.
Yeah,
too.
The take on the monster was amazing.
Yep. He got the thing because that's the thing. Our image of the monsters, obviously entirely crafted from the classic Universal Monsters one, but the way he describes or the way Mary Shelley describes Frankenstein in the book and how he's portrayed in the Bernie Wrightson images and stuff, is he's kind of he's got this long stringy hair. Mm-hmm. He's not attractive, but he's vaguely goodish looking.
He is beautiful. He's described as beautiful with his movement and grace, and he's horrifying to look at because he's obviously a stitched together body, but his features and his physicality and everything is if you see him with from the corner of your eye, you're like, oh, that's a good looking dude, but then you're like, that's a dead person.
which is something that both Bernie Wrightson and Junji, I think, get down pretty good in that.
Yeah.
So
we'll leave it right there. Stay tuned for our other discussions on Uzumaki and our Universal watch through
horrors. Yeah.
Universal horror monsters and iconic figures, because you got to think that was the first MCU, right? It was like,
Oh yeah.
They
It was 100%.
they tied in all
They
these.
tried to make it that. They tried to make it
universe.
that. Yeah, they tried to make it
the
that.
dark universe. But like before that, like
oh, dude, we gotta watch Monster Squad too. That's one we have to.
Sure. That's when all of them come together. That's like the Infinity
That's
Wars.
when all of them come together in the 80s, dude.
It wasn't just Dark Universe, like the full fucking. It was like
the Dark Universe of Universal Monsters.
Yeah, it's the Dooku.
Of Universal Pictures Monsters.
Yeah. Dark Universe.
Cinematic
Universe.
Yeah, Dooku.
Dark Universals. I don't even know, but
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna say goodbye for now, and stay tuned for our other Halloween themed and spooky style videos. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.